If you're looking for not too tall and not too small, Rough Country's 3.5-inch lifted knuckle kit is the perfect option for increased ground clearance and aggressive good looks. Before you begin installation, review the included instructions and verify that you have all the required parts, tools, and hardware before proceeding. For more helpful tips, visit roughcountry.com/before-you-lift. To begin installation, once you have raised your vehicle and removed the wheels, remove the 6 bolts holding the factory skid plate and unplug the connectors going to the electric power steering. Please retain factory hardware and front skid plate for reuse. Remove the tie rod nut, then strike the front of the mount to dislodge the tie rod end and remove the knuckle. Remove and unplug the ABS sensor wire from the frame. Remove the brake caliper and hang it out of the way, then remove the rotor. Remove the ABS bracket from the top side of the knuckle. Remove the dust cap, then remove the axle nut. Place the jack stand under the knuckle for support and then loosen the upper ball joint nut, but do not completely remove. Strike the knuckle to dislodge the upper ball joint. Loosen the lower ball joint nut. Strike the knuckle to dislodge the lower ball joint, then remove the ball joint nuts and the knuckle. Remove the upper strut nuts. Remove the 2 bolts securing the lower strut mount to the lower control arm and remove the strut from the vehicle. Remove the 4 bolts holding the factory cross member. Remove the cooling fins on the differential. Use a jack stand to support the front differential. Remove the 4 bolts holding the differential mounts to the frame. Lower the jack stand and pull down the front of the differential to allow enough room to slide the 2 1-inch differential spacers into place. Install the 1-inch spacers in the rear diff mounts. On the driver's side of the factory cross member, measure from the end of the tube and make marks at 4.5 inches and 8 inches on the front side. Measure 1/4 inch from the bottom and 2 inches from the back side of the mark. Then cut across the marks from the previous step. Insert factory hardware into the stock cross member and tighten. Using the supplied studs, place each stud into the smaller size holes in the strut spacer facing upward. Use the supplied sleeve to slide over each stud to act as a spacer, allowing you to pull the stud through the hole, locking the stud into place. Remove the sleeve and repeat on the other 5 studs. Place the strut spacer on top of the stud and tighten. Install the strut assembly into the factory mount. Note: locking washer must be installed between the nut and regular washer on the studs. Install the strut in the lower control arm. It may be necessary to jack up the lower control arm with a floor jack to align the lower strut holes. Remove the factory hub from the knuckle. Install the hub onto the new supplied lift knuckle, then torque the hub bolts. Using a reciprocating saw, cut the bump stop from the upper control arms on the passenger and driver's side. After the bump stop has been cut from the control arm mount, grind and apply paint to the cut surface to prevent rusting. It may be necessary to remove the upper control arm depending on the type of cutting tool you are using. Make sure to mark the cam bolt locations before removing. Install the knuckle assembly onto the lower ball joint and attach the upper control arm. Attach the upper control arm using the factory nut. Install the factory axle nut and the washer and torque to spec. Tighten and install the rotor. Install the ABS bracket on top of the knuckle. Install the brake caliper. Install the tie rod. Reconnect the ABS wire that was disconnected at the frame. Reconnect the connectors going to the electric power steering. Locate and install the new lower skid plate below the differential in the factory location. For rear installation, remove the factory shock absorbers and retain all factory hardware for reuse. Remove the factory U-bolts, then remove the factory blocks. Lower the axle using the floor jack to allow for the new 3-inch block to be installed. Install the block on the factory spring pad with the flat part of the block on the spring and the thinner end towards the front. Jack up the axle to meet the springs, making sure to align the center pin. With the floor jack applying slight pressure to the rear axle to keep the pin aligned, install the new supplied U-bolts and tighten in a crossing pattern. Locate and install the new shock absorbers in the factory mounting locations. Reinstall the wheels. This all-inclusive kit features everything you need for a stunning new appearance and enhanced off-road action, with a host of features designed to promote an incredible suspension geometry and ride quality. After installing any suspension component, it is advised that you have a qualified alignment center give your vehicle a proper alignment immediately.